today we're going to talk about ratios, which we've talked a little bit about how fractions can be ratios. Now we're going to really talk a little bit more in depth about what a real ratio is. A lot of you might think, well, a ratio is just a fraction. Well, it's not quite true. A ratio is a comparison of two quantities represented by division. Ratios can express part-to-part relationships, part to whole, or whole to part relationships. Okay, I'm zooming in and out a little bit just to kind of figure out. I'm using a new video tool, just so you know. So I'm kind of figuring it out as I go. Hopefully that's okay. Okay, the next thing I want you to write is that ratios are often written as fractions. Not always, but are often written as fractions in simplest form. Okay. Another thing that I always want to tell people, and I'm going to write a little note up at the, oopsie, made a mistake. Let's get my eraser out and erase that mess. Okay. One thing that I always want to tell people is that it's important to know that ratios represent the same units, or are comparisons of the same unit. They're not different units. Okay? I'd like to be able to pinch in and out of here, but I'm having trouble. But let's go ahead and see if I can do this with the zoom. Oh, there we go. I need my zoom button on. See, I'm learning as I go. You guys are probably laughing at me right now, but that's okay. Okay? This new app I have is called Explain Everything. I wish it would explain everything to me about how to make a video. Anyway, here we go. I'm going to write another special note up at the top with a star. Ratios compare the same units. Very important. They'll come in handy later. Okay, let's go down and look at the text message tip and see what that has to say. Let me get that a little bit bigger. There we go. There's 3 different ways to write a ratio. The first one is just 1 to 2. The next one has the colon. Oh, I think I can actually use a pointer too. Look at that. Oh, the third one is fraction in simplest form. Oh, I like that. That's kind of cool, isn't it? Fraction in simplest form. That's the third way. So let's write an example. Let's say that 3 out of 4 students scored an A on the math test they just took. We can write that in 3 different ways. 3, 2, 4, or we can write 3 colon 4, 3 out of 4 students, or we can write 3 over 4 as a fraction. Okay, 3 out of 4 students, and you always should have words or labels with all ratios. Students scoring an A, okay, on their test. So if you really wanted to be really perfect with your labels, you could say 3 out of 4 students. This is 3 students scored an A out of 4 total students. to the Incredible Hulk. You see what he says. Remember our Incredible Hulk? He was our guy that we used when we were simplifying fractions. Simplifying, we smash them, make them smaller. So we need to write a note here to ourselves that we always write ratios in simplest form. They are incorrect if they're not. If they're not written in simplest form, we can't really call it a ratio. So for example, if I said to you that 2 out of 4 people in group 6 had the answers right, that's the same thing as me saying 1 out of every 2 people have the answer right. If I said we have a 6-to-2 ratio, that's the same thing as saying 3-to-1, and we should represent our ratios in simplest form always. Okay, let's look at an example, like a real world kind of an example. And let's go to, let me scroll down here and let's do a time example, because these are always a little bit tricky. What if I said to you, let's compare 1 hour compared to 20 minutes. How would you write that as a ratio in simplest form? A lot of you might say that we should write 1 to 20. How many of you out there would think that that is correct? Actually, that is a big no. Let's put a big X over it, as that is no. No, definitely not, because they're not the same units. So let's write not same units. So we have to change them to be the same. Now you have a choice. You can change the hour into minutes, or you could change the minutes into an hour. Now I'm going to tell you, I think it's easier to change the hour into minutes, because if you change minutes into an hour, you're going to have a decimal or a fraction, and I don't think you want to include a decimal or fraction in your ratio if you don't have to. So let's change the hour. Let's point to that. Oops, that's not the right thing. Let's point. Okay, 1 hour. Let's change it to 60 minutes. Okay, 60 minutes to 20 minutes. That's the same thing. It's just written in the same units now. That's a good thing, right? That makes sense. Okay, so I'm going to put 2 arrows there. Ooh, I love that. Okay. Now, is that in simplest form? I know that you know that it is not. So we need to divide both of those by 20, and our actual ratio is a 3-to-1 ratio. All right, you guys are doing a great job, I can tell. Now, the next tip that I want to write down is that we need to watch the order of our numbers, okay? This is a piece of advice. Watch the order of your numbers. If a problem asks, let's see, I'm going to give an example here. If a problem asks you to compare phone hours, like the number of hours you're on your phone hours to study hours, you write phone hours first. Because it comes first in the problem. Trying to turn that arrow around, but it's not really turning so much. Oh well. Maybe I'll delete that. Oh well. I don't want to mess up and accidentally erase the whole video, so I will leave it there. Okay. So let's do a steps for finding ratios. Okay, so let's write down these steps. Okay, the steps to find ratios. This is important stuff here. Okay, let's put a little star to make sure we know it's important. The first step is make sure your units are the same. Two, create a fraction. your comparison from the two numbers. Okay. And then the final, and you could actually call it, your fraction looks like this over that. Whatever this is, that's the first thing you're comparing to that, the second thing you're comparing. And then your third step, hopefully your third step is to reduce, 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 which is just simplify. Reduce, reduce, reduce. So let's give an example of those phone hours to study hours. Let's say that my daughter her phone hours every day are, they're probably a lot. Let's say, I'm going to say her phone hours are probably at least 8 phone hours. And her study hours, hopefully my son's not listening to me right now and telling her I'm making up this example because she might not like it. But her study hours are maybe 2 to 2 study hours. Okay, so what is that ratio? What is the ratio of Shannon's phone hours to her study hours? They're going to be, it's an 8 to 2 ratio. I'm creating a fraction of this to that, my phone hours to my study hours. And the last step is to reduce. Okay, I guess I should have given you an example with minutes so you could convert it, but we'll start with this. Now we have to reduce this. We're going to divide both of these numbers by 2. And we get a final ratio of 4 to 1. So she has a 4 to 1 ratio of phone hours to study hours. I actually wish it was the other way around, but what are you going to do? Okay, that is all for the first part of the ratio video. Please answer the questions in the video and to make sure your notes are complete. When you're ready, you can go to video part 2 where you will learn how to do equivalent ratios or determine if ratios are equivalent. Good job on the first part. Bye for now.